Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us once again on Fanya Mambo Africa. It's a beautiful day in Kenya, and I'm happy to have with me the man, the legend.
Am I a legend? Fanya mambo Kinethia.
Yes, Fanya Mambo is with us on this episode again. And before we go to the deep content that we're discussing today, the acting IG in Kenya has been summoned 6 times now, or is it 7?
7.
And he's finally in court today.
Yes.
What does that mean for the system in Kenya?
I think first and foremost, it's not the system in Kenya, it's Kenya Kwanza administration. They have completely no regard for the rule of law. And I remember when the court gave its pronouncements and gave him a 6 months jail sentence. They decided to withdraw the security of the judge who gave that sentence. And it tells you, and then I saw the Chief Justice crying for justice, and all the other justices were crying for justice in the country. And I'm happy because they gave us this administration. They're the ones who were saying wild goose chase, I don't know, very unpalatable language when they were bringing this administration into place. So the judiciary is having a taste of their own medicine, and that is good, so that they can know the only problem we have in this country is the leadership at the top. The whole of Kenya Kwanza administration is bad leadership. And that's why it spirals down all the way to even the deputy IG, Masengeli, and all the drama that we saw.
And it was interesting to see yesterday during the swearing in of the new IG that the Chief Justice, who you're saying said some funny things, was seated a few seats away from Masengeli in the same court. Yeah. What does that mean for Kenyans? Can I be someone and just decide, you know what?
I think they're setting a very bad precedence. I mean, the fish rots from the head. And if the government shows us that it's okay for the top security officers to disobey court orders, then if Kenyans decide to follow that direction, let them not have a problem with us following that direction. I think as leadership, they need, what's the worst that would have happened? He would have appeared in court, he would have had his head, he would have explained himself. The 3 missing people, he would have even blamed other policemen on it. I think the best thing is to appear sometimes, obey court orders, and then question later.
And to something else. I hear you, Mount Kenya, people want to impeach Rigiji.
Rigiji fell out with his boss a long time ago because both of them are transactional leaders. They were never interested in this country. And the things they are fighting about have got everything to do with money and everything to do with opportunities and the what. They are looting this country dry, full stop. That's what they are doing. There's nothing else. And so if one decides to take more than the other, then they have a problem. Rigiji being impeached, this is the sad thing. First, the people who are fighting Rigiji are from Mount Kenya. I have not seen people from the Rift Valley. I have not seen people from Western. In fact, I will not be surprised if the person who brings the motion for the impeachment of Rigiji is going to come from Mount Kenya. That is the saddest bit.
Would it be?
It will be. It will be somebody from Kiambu. That I can tell you for free. And they will bring a motion. We will know, but it will be somebody from Kiambu. And they will be coming to impeach to bring a motion for the impeachment of the deputy president. Yet, all these other communities look at us as people of Mount Kenya and laugh at people of Mount Kenya. Because if Rigiji, for example, was from Rift Valley, I don't know a single MP from the Rift Valley who would bring a motion to impeach him. They would have to look for somebody from, even if he was from Nyanza. No single MP from Nyanza would be the one being used to bring about a motion to impeach one of their own. So Mount Kenya are shooting themselves in the head, and it's fine.
Okay. Something that's caught my eye this week again, Adani Group.
Adani Group of thieves. They are there.
Adani Group of company?
No. There are violent demonstrations in India that have gone on in the last 2 months against Adani and the atrocities that Adani has committed to Indians. It's now that we are learning that they are not only getting the airport, they have interest in the energy sector as well. Who is Adani? Who needs Adani? 230 billion. There are so many Kenyans put together who would have that money. If they had raised an IPO and said Kenyans can invest in the airport, and by the way, so they are coming to repair. Do you know that Rwanda is building a brand new state-of-the-art airport at $2 billion?
The argument for the CS.
And there's a funny group of Indian company here coming to tell us that they are going to renovate our airport at 2 billion. What are they renovating? Is paint more expensive here than in Rwanda? Shame on them. This is theft. There's nothing else. Let's not have a conversation about theft. People are trying to sugarcoat theft. These are thieves, a gang of thieves coming together looking for another thief, and I want to be taken to court for this, and stealing from the country. There's nothing else they're doing.
So what should Kenyans do, because it's been
We've
the
done
talk,
everything we could. We've
and
moved
now?
to court. The LSK has succeeded in blocking, but this administration has got a record. They have the best record in disobeying court orders, so I know they're also going to disobey this one. But as it stands right now, the court order has pronounced itself that Adani should not continue with touching our airport.
Have you heard the rumor that they also in chief? It's not even a rumor. The CS confirmed.
Now, why do we need those people to come and help us with our own health? We didn't have that problem. We didn't need them. That's why I'm telling you, this is just daylight robbery from Kenyans.
What
There's
would be your
nothing else.
message to the leader of the nation with regards to the whole takeover in Ketraco?
I have told Kenyans, and I have told them many times, the problem with us is that we want to deal with symptoms of a disease. You know, when you have Ebola in your body, or you have malaria, or you have, COVID-19, you have a flu, you have fever, you have all sorts of problems. Now, we have people who are talking of Adani, Chief, Ketraco. These are just symptoms of a horrible disease, which is Kenya Kwanza. And what we need to do is to deal with the disease itself, and the disease is Kenya Kwanza. Some people call it a government. I call it a malady, a catastrophe, a disaster, a horrible occurrence. It's like Ebola that happened to us, and now people are dealing with the symptoms of Ebola. Really, all these things you're seeing, Adani, Chief, Ketraco, disobeying court orders, they are symptoms of a bigger disease, and that disease is called Kenya Kwanza. What we need is chemotherapy to burn the cells, the cancer cells of Kenya Kwanza, so that we start with something new. But I can tell you, as long as you have Kenya Kwanza, you will discuss university funding model, you'll discuss Chief, you'll discuss airport, you'll discuss Ketraco, you'll discuss so many things, because you have a government that is bent on making life for Kenyans miserable. And they have no idea why you are complaining about them making your life miserable. They will continue to make your life miserable until you realize the problem is not all these things you're dealing with. The problem is that the government at the top was the wrong one for Kenyans to start with.
The government of Kenya. You've just been told you're the wrong government.
The malady that is Kenyan
malady.
government. Yes.
Please, Kenya Kwanza, do something. As Fanya Mambo is saying, he's saying you need to fix and, I don't know, do something else. But something else that has caught my eye and the world at large, pagers exploded.
Are you surprised? To start with, I'm not scared and I'm not surprised. There are things that happened in World War II that had not happened in World War I. And there are things that happened in the war in Iraq that were unbelievable and unimagined during the times of the Second World War. And progressive wars have taught us that human beings are ingenious. I mean, King David the Great fought with a spear and a stone and a sling. And as you progress, warfare changes. I will not be surprised if a time comes when people can weaponize even the chair you sit in your sitting room, so they just blow it from wherever they are. That was the first. It was a first. That's why it's news that pagers and walkie-talkies were blowing from wherever they are. I mean, I think a time is coming even when our mobile phones will be weaponized.
You know, when you say that, I'm a bit scared because
Don't be scared.
I'm holding my phone.
I've always told people, when we die, the problem is those who are left behind. Because if you don't bury me, I'll smell for you. So just bury me. The thing is, there are things you cannot. If you sit and start worrying that you can't use your phone, you can't do this, you can't do this, you'll be paranoid. The world is such a small world right now that people using Google Maps can narrow down to your house. They can even mark where your bedroom is from the top. So don't worry yourself so much. All I can say is that what happened in Lebanon and Beirut and all those walkie-talkies exploding is a sign of human development in terms of warfare and in terms of technology, because there's a lot of development that has happened in terms of warfare and technology. And that is what has been exposed. Maybe those crooks are very many more miles ahead. So just be prepared that the wars in the future and the fights of tomorrow will be a lot more complicated than what you saw in Israel.
But on a serious note, what does Israel want at this point? Like, is it a thing, because their target was Hezbollah, right? But how would you then map and say the people that were using these pagers or walkie-talkies are actually adults who are part of the Hezbollah movement and not maybe children? Because why would you? Because there are kids that died out of that.
Israel has always imagined that anybody who speaks to their enemy is their enemy. And if they find you having a conversation or a cup of tea, you know, there is this imagination in their mind, it could be real or unreal, that Iran has been supporting these countries. There is this imagination that Lebanon has benefited a lot from the enemies of Israel, including Hamas and so on and so forth. And so any time they even dare imagine, in fact, if they wake up from a wild dream and imagine that Sarah was seen somewhere speaking to a Hezbollah person, then they come and bomb Sarah and take away your specs, and they don't care. The problem with Israeli, they don't draw marks. If they have to kill your children to reach you, they will. And they have done that many times, and they've proven. If they have to destroy a hospital just to reach one doctor who they think removed a bullet that was supposed to have killed a Hamas guy, they will destroy a hospital to kill one doctor. You know, a rat hides behind the thermos. You kill the thermos plus the rat. That's Israel for you. And I think it's a very horrible state. Sometimes I worry deeply about why we allowed a state of that kind to exist, because it has done a lot of harm to humanity.
What would have been your not existing of Israel, for instance?
There are about 6 million people. Why don't you just distribute them to the whole world and then maybe make that a national park or a museum or a memorial site for something? I mean, when somebody becomes a pain to everybody in the world because they think that their existence and expansion is more important than everything else, I mean, let's just call them out and tell them, you know, like Kenya has got space, we can distribute them all over the place. Then we can make that a park, if that's the problem. Because
what do you think,
we can't have a street.
How do you think Netanyahu would react to your...
I don't care. This guy has been there for too long. I think that's the other problem. He's been in power for way too many years. He thinks he's a demigod. Those are some of the problems that the world is experiencing. We have a neighbor here who's existed as president for close to 40 years, and he's still wondering why people want to be president. Just like another queen who used to live somewhere and she thought it was important for her to be alive and to be queen. And then she was questioning Africans, why are you not practicing democracy? And herself had been queen for life, and she was not sharing the queenship with everybody. I think this nation has now started becoming a pain to very many people. And for me, every life matters. Anybody who would kill a child, whether that person is Israel or Russia or the US or even Kenya or Japan, then that person is a horrible person. Because children are unarmed. They have nothing, have got no capacity to fight themselves. Why are you killing children?
But now that you mentioned their enemy is anyone who seems to work with whoever they don't like.
Yeah.
So
if you start selling mangoes to Hamas, you are their enemy.
Because okay.
Yeah. Or even if you give them food if they are dying, you are their enemy.
So does it mean Israel will then kill people in Iraq, Iran? Like, will you kill
I think they're only limited.
Nations? Or?
They're only limited in terms of ability. If they had the ability, they would attack the whole world like Hitler attacked everybody from all directions. It's just that right now we are in a world that is more disciplined and more weaponized. And every time they are about to attack another nation, they realize that the repercussions can be dire. But I think we need to find a way to start stopping some of these leaders. I don't see the difference between Israel and Hitler right now. It's the same. I mean, same script, same behavior. You can't be fighting everybody, every imaginary person. And what angers the world most is that when they create a humanitarian crisis, they prevent people from helping those who have a humanitarian crisis. Women and children, you can't fly anything to them. This is what makes the world angry about Israel. The fact that they will not allow you to give humanitarian assistance. We've seen them bomb hospitals, not once or twice. And this is what makes them the kind of nation that the world does not need. Because we need a world where human beings are human beings. Where if I wake up today and Kenya is fighting with Uganda, for God forbid, and I find a small Ugandan boy, I'll help him because he's a small boy. Or a girl. I mean, it doesn't matter. There is a child. And this is the kind of world we need. But Israel is living in a different world.
But now the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah, has
Yes.
said that they're going
Hassan.
to... Yes. Retaliation is in the offing. Does it then make...
He doesn't need to
them
say, if
any
he's
better?
retaliating, let him just retaliate. But I have always said, once they are done throwing bombs at each other, the difference between human beings and animals is that we have language, animals don't. So the most superior method of dispute resolution is conversation. And anytime you find yourself throwing stones and bombs and weapons, it just means you're primitive. You're behaving like a lion that has to draw its claws or remove its teeth, or an elephant that has to come honking you. I mean, if you're a human being, what you need is to use language. It's the most superior weapon that we have that animals don't have. So by the time you're picking up a gun to shoot someone, it means you've gone to animal level. And that's where these human beings are. So we are waiting for them to come back to human level. The First World War was won with a pen. The Second World War, it's about sitting down and having a conversation because you're human beings.
Do you know who's tried to bring these nations to have a conversation together?
The problem is not who is trying to bring them to have.
No, I have a reason as to where I'm driving. The United States has, quote unquote, put itself as the Messiah, saving the world.
United what?
From
State what?
Killings and...
I think one of the first things you need to do is to have an audit of weapons. Go to the war zone and let's have an audit of these weapons and ask, where do they emanate from?
Where do you think they come from?
The devil knows, but the truth is, some of those nations that you think are trying to unite and bring about peace are probably the source of this problem in the first place.
Are you saying the
yes.
US?
Okay, one of the first things, and especially the Democrats, and I have my reservations with them, and I pray that they don't win the next election, is the Democrats have a habit of interfering with everybody. Everything, even the ocean, everything near you, even Kenya, they want to come and know what we are eating. I like the Republicans for the reason that when we've had Republican presidents, they don't care what happens outside the borders of the US, other than what is a threat to the existence of the United Nations.
America.
Yeah, but they don't want to come and micromanage Africa. They don't want to come and tell you, like they were telling the Ugandans here, you have to legalize lesbianism for us to give you money. The Republicans don't care. Really, you do your thing. Right now, the US cannot be very clean. You've seen American presidents who've come out clearly and said that they support Israel.
Yeah, it's not even a secret.
How do you support a nation that kills children? How? What's wrong with your head? How do you support a nation that kills children?
But
it doesn't matter whose children are. No. Children. What do you gain from killing a 5-year-old child or a 10-year-old child? What do you gain as a nation?
Let me throw a spanner in the works. You know why I feel like the US is involved in this whole thing? Because elections are coming up in November, and there have been complaints of the living standards. It's very expensive today. So one of the major things that's available in the Middle East in terms of resources is oil. So how do you look at this as an oil war to control pricing by the US? Like destabilize these Middle East nations?
I have never understood why a nation that claims to have the largest deposits of oil will not mine its own oil and is busy disturbing those who have oil. A time is coming when the world, we are looking for alternative sources of energy. There's so many electric cars on the road right now, and they will continue to increase. So you continue keeping your unmined oil there and disturbing those people who have oil. What's wrong with your head? What if tomorrow human beings discover something you can do with the sun that would power everything and then make that oil? There used to be something called coal. People forgot that in the 40s, 50s, and 1910, 1902, if you had coal, it was the source of energy, it was everything. Oil is going there. At some point, oil will become like coal. Nobody will believe. Call people, tell them, I have coal. They ask you, what do you want me to do with that fossil fuel? I think this oil war is exaggerated and it's overrated. If nations that have oil would start mining their own oil and minding their own business, would have a better world altogether.
But why do you think the US is so much interested in? They were in Iraq. Now the whole Israel war, of course, they have a hand behind it.
I don't know what their interests are, to be honest. I wouldn't even want to know because it makes absolutely no sense that a nation would make it its own business and preoccupation to disturb others. And to even spend money and resources. All the oil they harvested from Iraq, because it is known they stole a lot of oil from there, it eventually did not bring down their costs of fuel in the United States. I don't think that when you think geopolitically that most of our leaders make the best decisions. Sometimes you think about leaders and you ask, there was a normal human being who did this. And they were a superpower president, yeah, and it never made sense.
Now
It
that
still
you
doesn't make
mentioned
sense.
the superpower aspect, don't you think then they want to destabilize any nation that seems to be coming up so that they are at the
You
top?
can't. I mean, how much do they owe China? They would start by paying their debt to China. And maybe if they paid China, they would be bankrupt. So, I mean, China right now, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of technology, in terms, they are way above. They are many years ahead of even the United States of America. And there's nothing you can do about that. China, what is China not making for itself?
So do you think?
I think the only thing China is not making is oxygen for every citizen. I have tried thinking, what can China make? In fact, sometimes you are in the airplane, you ask somebody, a Chinese, do you know Jesus? They tell you no, but if you give me a sample, I can make for you. That's Chinese for you. They have thought through. I don't think there's a product that China doesn't have.
So do you think the US is threatened?
They are threatened, yes, but it's useless threat. I mean, there was a time when the United Kingdom was everything in the world. There was a time when Germany threatened the world. All that the United States needs to know is that powerful nations will rise, and others will fall, and others will rise, and others will fall. It's just your time.
But that friction is what that whole idea
Let
of
them
having
do it. I have
maybe
told
countries
you.
like Russia try to topple them, then becomes you
Russia
have to
is not
force
trying to
war.
topple them. Russia has always been up there. Why doesn't the US attack Russia?
Why does
The way they
Russia
invade,
attack?
the way they invade Somalia and they come invade the other day they were in, I don't know, Turkey or why are they not going to Russia?
They don't have a reason as yet, perhaps.
You think so?
I mean,
They
it's not
claim
clear.
they infiltrated their elections at some point. Let me just tell you, the US is ready to attack anybody they think is weak. And that's why before they attacked Saddam Hussein, they had to visit and experience. And that guy made a mistake. He showed them that he had no nuclear. I like Kim. Kim usually points to the US and says, I can shoot from here. And that's why they don't touch Kim. Usually says, I can test. He keeps testing, by the way. I think he's disturbing the waters a lot. But he keeps testing. And he keeps sometimes point to the US, show them I can hit them from here. Anybody who can hit the US from home will never be attacked by the US.
Now that you've brought the whole idea of Kim, is the nuclear war the next phase of? Because now we've tried. We've seen pagers can explode.
I think we are beyond nuclear
rockets.
war. African countries, some of them are now making nuclear reactors. We are beyond nuclear war. Some African countries have acquired submarine. I think if you talk to the Russians now, they are making something more superior than nuclear war.
What would that be?
Well, they will tell us one day. But I can tell you, as we speak in the world right now, it's not going to be about nuclear war. Nuclear warheads are there. It's been proven that countries have them. They are dangerous, we know. So let's see what the next war will be like. Nuclear war was a 1945 idea.
But
Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
It hasn't, like, that was the one and only that has been referenced. But since then, we've not had, it's just been threats.
Now
we can do this. Do you think
we have
at some
weapons
point,
3,000 times faster, better deployment. They are timed, they are programmed. I mean, nowadays they have nuclear warheads like you'd have bullets. I think the next war is going to be bigger than nuclear war. That's why you are seeing now things detonating in the ears of people, walkie-talkies and all.
so that would be maybe technological war?
It's technological.
And who do you think then would come up with that? Now that we've already tested with Israel, what would be your prediction of?
I think the problem with us is that the only lesson we don't learn from war is that we don't need war. Because if we learned that lesson from war, then we would never have conversations about creating more weapons and newer weapons. I mean, look at a country like Kenya right now. Some of those countries, if they wanted to come here in the morning, I think they would have said they would switch off our jets from the air and these old things that carry our people here. I think the focus should be more on integrating human beings and creating very deep human connections so that a Nigerian can marry a Russian and they can have children and make the world a peaceful and habitable place. This thing of trying to think of yourselves as Indians, as Russians, as Nigerians, as Colombia. That nonsense is what is causing us fights. In fact, I dare submit, I wish we had no boundaries. Because then we are a global community, we are a global village. Let's think of human development, not weapon development and not weaponization and not war. Any leader who thinks of how they can make more weapons to destroy more people is a horrible person.
But I like your thinking. However, it is it's an idea. That's the ideal. The idea sounds great, but
You know of
the
nations that
reality-
don't have armies.
The reality
No, you
is-
know of nations that don't have armies.
I have.
Starting with Japan.
I cannot confirm that.
Yes, you see, the thing is, at some point you realize that you spend a lot on defense. And you spend a lot on weaponizing yourselves. And eventually, it is conversations that human beings can have. And I think the more you want to domineer the world, the more you have problems. So Israel and all these Hamas and all these whatever, this is the time to tone down.
But you know
Although
that
Israel doesn't
I'm
listen
telling
to
you that
anybody.
is the ideal world, but the reality is a bit different. And how I want you to look at it this way: pagers exploded and walkie-talkies. Have you thought of it if today that was controlled because maybe it was an experiment of something? If today a terrorist just decided, you know what, accessed to, let's say, like Heathrow Airport, or even JKI, or Ethiopian, whatever, that airport, and decided to control the systems. Have you thought of the imminent danger that would...
Sarah, I think you forget where we are. What are our children doing in primary school? They are drawing grasshoppers, okay? Parts of a grasshopper, and they are saying the eye and what and what and what. Now, you are telling that child to start having conversations about a pager.
That child is not...
Or a walkie-talkie exploding. No, I'm just telling you. If terrorists decided that they want to send walkie-talkies to be used by our security forces at the airport, which walkie-talkies are capable of exploding? Now look at our standard policeman. Just open the walkie-talkie inside and tell him, name for me 3 parts. He'll tell you it's not a grasshopper because I named grasshoppers in high school. I think this conversation is good, but our nation is ill-prepared for it. Because our leaders, instead of preparing our people for the world of tomorrow, go to any high school today, they are lighting a stupid Bunsen burner. A Bunsen burner in 2024 is being used in a chemistry lab. Now that child lives and is supposed to go into a world where walkie-talkies are exploding in the airport. My friend, I think Africa and Kenya is very many years away from having this conversation.
But I want you to look at it from the perspective of maybe China or Korea, or, a terrorist nowadays is not...
You can't stop it.
If they accessed one of the biggest airports in the world today, have you thought of the danger that would come out of that?
I'll tell you this. When M-Pesa started, it was started to send money. But thieves came and infiltrated M-Pesa and have been able to steal once in a while, not every time. When banking started, it was supposed to be secure. I mean, there's been a lot of transfers. Anybody who comes up with good technology with very good intentions. But you cannot stop people from thinking of how to use existing good technology and turn it into weapons that can cause a lot of harm. So these are just examples of the walkie-talkies that exploded and the pagers. I mean, a time is coming, and I can tell you for free, when people will weaponize mobile phones, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because even you, the buyer of the phone, is very innocent. I mean, they've hidden drugs in shoes they've done, and the shoes were meant to be worn. So the mind of the criminal is always to use what's available to achieve their end, and that you cannot stop. I think what we need to do is that the world needs to keep investing in research and in securing whatever they come up with. But those ones were just an example of what the world is getting into, and it is going to happen so many other times.
So the whole idea of technological disruption, how do you think then that is going to affect how countries monitor their security systems, how people import things? Because today you can sit here and import something from US or wherever, whichever country.
Who is the biggest employer in the world? Have you ever thought about it? It's the criminal. I mean, the criminal is the big. In fact, if one day criminals decided to stop being criminals, this world would be very poor. When you walk in from this compound, you have a gate. You've thought of alarm systems, you've thought of security systems. When you come in here, you think of master locks. When you come in, even banks have to think of encoding their systems. Why? Because the criminal is so busy. And every time the criminal is active, they've created industries. Today, if criminals were to say we are not going to steal anymore, CCTV cameras would become useless. I mean, so many industries would collapse. The biggest employer in the world is the criminal. He creates so many employment opportunities. You come up with a banking system, the criminal hacks it. Then you have to come with an anti-hacking software, and so on and so forth. So I think for me is the ideal world is a world that has got people who innovate with good intentions, and a world that has got people who come and infiltrate good innovations and use them for criminal purposes. And in the absence of that, the world would never grow.
So let's keep doing.
Just keep doing what you need to do, but just know some criminal will come and make this microphone, put some powder that would kill people if you speak through it. But it was meant for communication. Don't worry so much as a world about what criminals will do because of new invention. Just know that that's the nature of the world since the creation of the world.
But on a serious note, when you think about it, if today someone can manufacture a phone and it explodes or whatever system and disrupt the world, like if, for instance, someone came up with the way to ensure, like, hack all airports across the world at the same time, maybe. The crisis that would come from that, no planes taking off, no landing.
The number one thing you cannot do is you cannot stop what goes on in the minds of people. In this room, there's so much going on in the minds of people, and they'll implement it. I think for the world to be progressive, it's a question of always being at the head, being in front of what's going on, and trying to deal with what comes tomorrow. But if we have 10 billion people, then we have 10 billion ideas. And you can't counter-plan them. You can't outsmart every other person in the world. You make your phone and sell it. And if problems happen in future, you deal with those problems.
But do you think that now, moving forward, nations are now rethinking of how or the technologies they use?
Oh yes, they have to. I mean, a long time ago, Kenyans used to leave this country with a passport, Joseph Kamau Mwangi, and you'd get to the US or the UK and you're deported. And then you would come back with a new passport, Michael Otieno Kamau. And to them, they used to think we all look alike. And so with time, what did they do? They introduced biometrics, they introduced the eye, they introduced the teeth. I don't know. Sometimes they don't even want they don't want to see your documents, they want you. So the world has changed so many things, so many times, because people would walk into airports with a different passport and they would visit countries where they had been imported from. But then when they brought in the biometrics, it changed a lot of things. So because of what happened in Lebanon, we are happy because the world now will have to rethink and re-engineer, and the systems will become tighter and better.
Wow. And something else I would want to know in terms of how this affects development, what does it mean for countries like in Africa? For instance, because in terms of tech production, let's just face it, Africa is not at par with, say, not even China. Maybe China have pushed. We are not even, I don't even know who to compare with.
I think it's very easy. First, feed your people. You know, a hungry person can't even open a phone. I mean, let's first focus on what is important. If you're able to feed your people first and clothe them, and you know, when you are full is when you start thinking. Most of the times we wake up with only one idea: how do I fix a meal? There's a woman who wakes up and her plan is to walk 7 kilometers to get water, another 7 kilometers back. When she gets home, the only thing she can do is cook. So when we first make our lives better for our people, the rest will happen. But you cannot talk of technological development. Right now, university lecturers are on strike. All of them, universities are, people, nothing is going on. But it's fine because they are going to be taught all engineering there anyway. So let us first be able to fix the fundamentals.
Dismiss our engineers.
My dear, let me tell you, you need to speak to University of Nairobi Faculty of Engineering and sell some of the engines that were being taught how to. It was an old Morris. that uses a carburetor. We are past VVTI, we are at electric, we've gone past, my dear. So let's just say this. Let's get the fundamentals right for Africa.
So
When you're able
Africa,
to fast feed, no, do the basics. Fast feed your people. Make sure they are comfortable. You're able to pay for malaria treatment because it's killing more people than HIV and cancer. When you can fix those ones, then you can start discussing bigger problems. But there's no need here telling a hungry person about a Huawei phone and how it can detonate in their ears. It doesn't make sense because he doesn't even understand how it operates.
African leaders, it's your time to do better for the world. We need to have a contribution to this world. Something else, for countries like this whole detonation thing, of course, it's attracted everyone from everywhere. For countries like Russia, who are a threat to the US, sort of, or how they are looked at as a threat by the US, what does this mean for them in terms of the gadgets in use? Because I know countries like Russia produce a lot of drones for the world. What does this whole disruption mean for them?
It's a thinking point, I think. It causes them to, maybe they laughed. Let me just say, maybe they looked at it and said, we were here 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Or perhaps they were like, how have we never thought about this? I don't know what the reaction of the engineers would have been from where they were, but definitely it sparked a conversation. And that conversation is good for any engineering nation and for any nation that is making gadgets. The fact that it happened is an eye-opener for very many people, even for lawyers, because a lot of laws will start being made around, because, there's a whole space that is IT and information and telecommunications law. And I, being a lawyer, I can tell you, it will enrich that sphere, because people will start saying the standards of a good gadget. The law touches on everything, including that pole that you saw at the gate coming, how many millimeters should be. There's a law for everything. Everything, literally. So it will affect many spheres. It's a conversation starter, and it will start a conversation in the field of IT, in the field of law, in the field of engineering.
And another conversation that has been huge across is making sure that the dollar stops being the world's, the control of the world stops from being the dollar in terms of money. And the nations around BRICS, the BRIC nations, China, Brazil, Russia, South Africa, and all these ones that have been added along the way. What do you think this whole attack will do to the conversations around changing the de-dollarization?
Very easy. There's a time when we had a guy called Julius Caesar. He ruled what was the known world, and every other coin was known to have come from Rome. Who remembers his coins anyway? The British came, they colonized everybody, including the US. And for a long time, the pound was everything. Even here in Africa, you either had the shilling or the pound. Then the American dollar has come. It will have its reign. It will go. I can tell you for free, it will go. And another currency will come. Maybe it will be the Chinese or the Russian, or it will be the euro. A time will come. Its season will die. Anybody who is there clinging on to the dollar needs to read history, because many people don't read history. At the time of Julius Caesar, who would have thought that the Roman currency would have died? Even Jesus touched it, for those who believe in Jesus. And he told them, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to. Where is that currency in the world? I mean, the pound was everything. When the British colonized the world, everybody was talking about the pound. The pound, at that time, it was competing with the franc. But again, where are those currencies? Now the dollar is there. It started to be fought. Whatever happens, at one point, the dollar will die. And it will be forgotten.
You think Americans will buy that idea? Trump.
Rome never
bought
the idea. But you see, the thing is, how long is Trump going to be alive? Julius Caesar did not.
Many other Trumps.
Julius Caesar was not there for life.
Yeah.
Okay, he was there for his life. And he left some of us, now we are here. And a cat alive today is bigger than Julius Caesar who's dead. Even a mouse, as long as it's living. Let us not think about the dollar as a very important thing. It's a currency that is being used in the world right now, at this season in history. And its time will come. It's an era. It will have to go. And nobody even has an idea of what's going to replace it, but it will go. So there will be resistance, there will be fighting, there will be complaints, there will be restrictions and sanctions here and there. Then eventually, when the time for the dollar to exit comes, it will. And by the way, it's because we are always thinking that in terms of this currency. Today, there's a lot of currency that is moving on in phones. I send more money through my phone than I do actually have physical cash. So the time for the dollar will come. Don't fight it. It will die when
You
the time
think
comes.
Putin would be happy to hear you say don't fight it, for instance?
Well, putting up a fight is good, but I believe in obsolescence. For a very long time, we've seen certain aircraft grounded. We no longer use this. It's too expensive to run. It's what. People forget that everything gets to a point where it gets something called obsolescence. It becomes obsolete on its own. Sometimes today you tell somebody, use a phone that is not a smartphone. You tell even if it's free, I don't want it, because if I can't touch what I want, if I can't go online. So the dollar will be hit by obsolescence at some point, whether you fight it or not.
Americans, the world is coming for you, so he said. And now that we're speaking about American issues, one Donald Trump wanted to be assassinated again.
They have a way of shooting his ear, which is very near the brain. I don't know. I think it's very tricky to understand. Some say he's looking for sympathy, it's himself. Some say it is true people want to assassinate him. All sorts of theories will come. Bottom line is, for us as Africa, America having a Republican president is better than having a Democrat president. I am not happy because first Biden and Kamala Harris, by extension, are friends of William Ruto. So I would rather that those presidents who are not friends of William Ruto become president in the UNS. It's going to be better for us. America has already shown that when they have Democrats in place, they really interfere with Africa. So I pray for Trump.
That sounds very personal for Kenyans.
No, I pray for Trump, not because I would like him for president. He's not the most exciting fellow on the face of the planet. But still, the fact that Biden was a friend of President William Ruto, and by extension, Kamala Harris might inherit that friendship, then we would rather not have those ones.
You know why I'm saying it's very personal for Kenyans? One of the Democrats is Kenyan, who was a president in the US.
And that's a very good conversation, because there's a petition I have in court
that
should be
against
filed
Obama?
this week. No, okay. Against, you see the Presidential Retirement Benefits Act. It's an 8-page law that makes it impossible and criminal for President Uhuru Kenyatta to participate in politics. I mean, not only Obama, even older presidents before Obama are campaigning. Even Clinton himself was campaigning for the president of their choice. But in Kenya, you come here, the president is told you can't participate in politics. What kind of democracy is that? They've taken away his human rights. So, President Kenyatta, wherever you are, your petition is ready. I know you don't know me, you've never seen me, but we are filing it in court. And what we want to do is to disentangle you from this Presidential Retirement Benefits Act that makes it impossible. Because we want you to campaign for the candidate of your choice in 2027.
Maybe he wants to retire in peace.
No. In fact, people are yearning to hear his voice. I mean, Obama also wanted to retire in peace. But you remember he's campaigned for Hillary. He's now campaigning for Kamala Harris. And although sometimes I wish Michelle was campaigning for herself, should have won in the morning. But anyway, that's her decision. Okay.
And as we come to conclusion on this discussion today, I have something I've been thinking about Elon Musk. You know, Elon Musk is giving internet to the world via satellite. And after the whole explosive, then I became a bit worried. Or concerned, for that matter. Because what if Starlink has something that's...
Don't worry. I told you today with Google Maps, people can screen your house and see from the top.
If I don't know, then I'm not threatened.
I have refused to worry about what that incoming technology will do. Because even if you gave me that satellite and told me to open, I wouldn't name the parts and I wouldn't tell you what does what. If I see one that looks like a banana, I would eat it. Love bananas. I think let his technology come, let it compete with our Safaricom. Now they've started upping their game. Are they going to spy on us? They already have always been doing it anyway, with or without those things. Now they'll do it better. Is it going to help us? Maybe. Faster speeds, it's good for growth, it's good for business, it's good for even people who are doing live shows and all. As I said, let's not fight what is coming, especially if it's coming in terms of a product that we need. I mean, we need faster internet. And the more we start saying, I mean, all these people rely on satellite, and Kenya does not have a satellite of its own. As I told you, we are still drawing grasshoppers in high school. So let it come, and we can live with it.
Let it come.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, you've been told, let it come. And I saw him tweet actually say that City Hall, Nairobi County, is already signed up.
I mean, it's willing buyer, willing seller.
Yeah,
if the Russians have their own, they bring. If the Turkey have their own, they bring. We don't have these things. If the Chinese have a faster one, just bring it. We'll put them on the roofs. We'll be saying, mine is from China, mine is from Russia, mine is from... They are connected to some satellite there. If they explode, we die. We'll be buried here. This is our home.
We die like real
don't
men.
worry. Don't worry yourself.
So I came across a post on Twitter that I want to read, and you can tell me what you think before we close. It says, if Americans that say Huawei phones are unsafe, it means that Americans have done something on Apple phones. So, because Huawei is Chinese. Then if Americans say that China's EVs are unsafe, EVs is electric vehicles are unsafe, it means that Americans must have done something to Tesla, which is theirs. So then someone said, I have always said that all those bad things Americans accuse China of doing, they must have done or are doing it at home. No single exception.
Allow me to explain it in a manner that Kenyans will understand.
Please.
This. You know, there was a time people came and started fighting some Suzuki car that had come from CMC that was being used mainly for Uber. And they were saying this car has no airbags, it has no safety features, and so on. I told them the person who would have been in that Uber would have been in a bus. The ordinary bus with 3 seats made of frames that we don't know how they look like. Sometimes during an injury, there's the seats that kill people more because there's no scientific thought to them. You measure with a tape measure, you cut, you build a seat. And sometimes when the alternative is you staying without a phone, please, as Africa, avoid having conversations about the safety of those phones. Because I said, even if they were brought to us and we were told, choose the safe one, and the names are not displayed, what would you start? What measure would you use? Would you start measuring with a tape? Would you put them on a weighing scale? Now look at the things available at your disposal. You'd go to the local butchery and tell them, put this phone here. Tell me how many grams it is versus this one. What other measure do you have for testing that this gadget is safe? You'd use a tape measure to measure the length. And then what other thing do you have? Maybe you light a torch on it, and then you still wouldn't know. These are their fights. Bring that Huawei, bring that whatever, let them, we'll call each other. Like, as long as I'm able to reach you in Nakuru, that's fine. If they explode, too bad. But we are a country, I mean, what alternative do we have, honestly? In terms of technology, we can only come up with laws to safeguard. But then again, we would have to go and ask those people, how do we make this law? What are the basic standards we say? It should not heat up after 2 minutes. You know, still they would have to guide us on what to write in the law that protects our people. Because then what is the standard? What's the measure of a good phone? In Kenya, there are things we are able to do. Like a Kenyan can tell you the measure of a good mutura. We have the standards. We know it's tasty, it's hot, it has to be made at night, it's one of the ingredients, it has to have kachumbari. But now, a technological gadget like a phone, what standards of measure is available to the common mwananchi, wherever they are, to be able to say that this is good, this is bad? Really, we don't. All we know is when you want a charger, you just need to know whether it's a Type-C or it's an iPhone or it's the other one, Android. That's it.
Wow. That's a nice place to end it, unless you have concluding remarks, which can be both local and...
I think in conclusion, I'd like to say, unfortunately, that we who are angered the most by the war in Israel have got very little we can do. Even if I stole a gun from a policeman to go and help, I would need an aircraft to get me there. And then I would ask, how does an Israeli look like? And then how does a Hamas look like? So that I don't shoot the wrong one. And by the time I act, they'll have killed me. So there's very little we can do about that war. And if we pray, they claim that Jesus came from them. So I think maybe our prayers would have to go through there first and then go to some place in heaven. I think as a nation, sometimes let's focus really on making the lives of our people better. Any person in a position of leadership, if we can make sure that all the school-going children are eating and a balanced diet to start with, then we'll have a healthy nation, maybe capable of competing in Olympics. What else do we beat the world in? Those things that God has helped us to beat the world in. Corruption. But for now, corruption, we have a good record, but I hope we can change that. So in conclusion, let us really put in more energy in rebuilding our nation, and of course in doing our best to remove Kenya Kwanza from the government in 2027. Those people do not deserve to be there. So come 2027, let us all go out and vote and remove this bad administration and replace it with better people.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was an interesting session, and I hope people learned a thing or two or got, share with us in the comments section, by the way, what you think about the new technological developments in the world and how the world is changing and what you feel about it. Share your sentiments. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you soon on the next episode.